You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
There we go. Now it's working. Like my mixer decided to randomly not have the sound on. But we fixed it. All right, on the go. You know, you gotta just do shit on the fly sometimes. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight we have episode 193. We will, of course, be taking a look at the most recent news surrounding Overwatch as well as its competitive scene. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar, and Ed, tonight we are talking about both teams that are in our Lord bet, so we can try to understand our reason behind why we have backed each horse in this case, be it Boston Uprising or the London Spitfire, but we'll get into that when we do our Atlantic North preview. But before we get to the agenda, how has this past week been treating you?
It's actually been pretty good. I've been playing good amount of Hearthstone, good amount of Apex, and a little Overwatch sprinkled in there. This past week, ranked up pretty well in Apex, which was nice. I got up to where my goal that I set myself for this season. I hit gold 4 in Apex.
I don't even know if that's good. I'll be honest.
It's basically like hitting gold.
So you're
mid to high gold in Overwatch.
So basically average.
Yeah, I'd probably say that. Except, it's the SR system for Apex is 100% different than in Overwatch. So it's not really. It's like comparing apples to oranges,
right?
Almost. But I've been playing a little bit more Overwatch, playing a lot more Sigma. Still love playing me some Sigma. Still love playing DPS too. Moira, I used to play Moira a lot, and then it's just boring to me.
Well, did you stop getting all the golds?
No.
Is that what the problem is?
It's like where we play, it's such a no-brain hero to just dominate with. It really is.
I don't know what you're talking about, Ed. My placements did not showcase that at all.
You went 4-1. Okay? So F off. So yeah, I've been playing Sigma more, and playing DPS. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I'm still playing Hearthstone, Battlegrounds, all that stuff. It's more balanced than it has probably been in a while in Hearthstone. So it's been good. New job's been going good. I'm now doing 4 podcasts. So I'm on Totem's level for number of podcasts I do.
Oh, I need to bring back Recall then.
Yes. I am tied up with Totem in the number of podcasts I do.
God help us if everyone here listens to all of them.
Well, all right. Only 2 are Overwatch, 1 Hearthstone, 1's Apex.
I'd like to formally apologize to Skinny Penis, aka Kinder.
Yes. I play with Kinder. I'm with Kinder and Kerbar over on, dropping spicy on Mash Those Button Network Tuesdays. And it's been fun. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I mean, Oric's been at work. Like they did like a new system for like the Fresh Cut program that I do, which is kind of not great. Because it's basically like telling us to. It basically tells us like what we need to like produce. But the problem is, everything is set to like a case minimum, which is like twice as much as what we actually need. And I'm not supposed to adjust the numbers through like the first month of said program. So it has been exhausting on that front, but on the gaming side, pretty good. You know, I actually streamed a little bit of Overwatch the other night. We did
Yeah, and you wouldn't let me play with you.
our support placements, and I refused to play with you primarily because I was solo queuing at the time. And I went 4-1 as you mentioned, and you know we did pretty good. I tried to run Baptiste early on, and I am still not good with Bap. So then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna abandon it. Like regardless of what the perception of the meta is, I was like, you know, I'm either gonna play Zenyatta, which is had always been my comfort pick, or we will just run Mercy should we have a Pharah. If we don't have a Pharah, we're running Moira. And we just ended up spamming Moira for the majority of the games, and there were a lot of clutch moments that we had with Coalescence, so I was pretty happy overall. I will note that at, you know, the gold level, which is where we're at, tank positioning has been an absolute nightmare, where they were just constantly out of line of sight or too far forward in many cases, and there were more than a handful of times where, you know, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, well, where's my team at? Like, I don't know what's going on. What is he doing?
As a tank player, that's all on the support player. That's your own damn fault.
No, see, I'm trying to play the objective, which is to win the game, not to feed my brains out like they were doing.
Your orbs travel as far as I can travel.
There's no reasoning with
I caught you there.
That depends how far forward they are, to be honest.
Now, as Sigma, I can't generally get that far forward as Sigma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the movement ability, but as Reinhardt, God help us all if I'm on Reinhardt.
Well, you don't have the float-in capability.
No, but I have the charging capability. And that shit's getting hit on cooldown.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're actually going for a pin. You're just gonna charge anyway to cover up that ground. Yeah.
If you ain't charging, you dying. And if you're charging, you dying.
Basically. So
I see the flaw in my plan already.
So I will probably do more placements tonight after the podcast. Whether it's tank or DPS, I don't know yet. I still got to eat after this, so I'll figure that out after the fact. But you know, like we placed like 120, 130 SR higher than where we last ended. So I mean, I guess that's good. But like, you know, again, like I don't plan on just like only doing solo queue for the majority, just because like that is more of a risk. Not only in regards to my enjoyment of the game, but how long I would actually want to stream the game. So it would still kind of fit like hand in hand in that regard. But let's go ahead and see what is going on in regards to the Overwatch news this week. So to start things off, I will note I do not have anything about the Lunar New Year event in the show notes, primarily because at the time of writing show notes, none of the information was out. And when I finished show notes, all of the information was leaked, basically. So we're going to be covering that next week, because, spoiler, that's when the event is. So we'll cover that in that regard then, and, you know, we can talk about how lackluster everything is for another day. You know, we'll let it like sit for another week, and maybe I'll be able to find something positive or semi-positive to say about it. But outside of that, you know, we actually had some interesting stuff happening this past week. One of which came from our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Cap, praise him, who was basically like outlining pros and cons that were affecting the core experience of the game through like drastic changes. Now, it was primarily revolving around different variations to the role queue and different things that the development team was testing. So it primarily revolved around running like 1 tank, 3 DPS players, and 2 support. And, this was like one of their ways to, quote, fix the DPS queues. And, in that regard, it worked great in regards to, DPS players in queue. But, then they were kind of like talking about, like, well, what do we do with a character like Roadhog? Like, do we push him more into, like, a main tank sort of position, or do we start to balance him and adjust him as a damage character? Because he's not really a shield tank, so he wouldn't really fit that role. So I thought that was, like, kind of interesting that, they would actually consider, like, swapping roles for a more, like, flex character. Now, granted, like, there was a point where we had offense and defense, and that kind of like switched to just damage at one point. But there was a lot of emphasis put on the tank player, which, was only one person, and they kind of just felt like that put just too much stress on that one individual, which is the same that could be said for another thing that they tried, which was the quick play Clown Fiesta of solo tank, solo support, and 4 damage dealers, which, just would make the game experience absolutely terrible. And, if you're that support player, you would just feel like you wouldn't be able to keep anyone alive. Now, obviously, they did not go and finalize, like, in either direction here with either of these comps. They stuck with 2-2-2. But I want to get your thoughts on the idea of a 1-3-2 Overwatch and basically what that would be for, like, the gaming experience. Like, do you feel like it would be just too much pressure knowing that on one role it would be up to an individual player?
I think it would be horrible if they went 3-2-1. I know a lot of people think that it would be fun. It'd be good for the game. It'd be interesting. Shut up. Like, all right, you're never going to be happy. The people who are like, oh, 3-2-1 will fix the game are the same people who are like 2-2-2 will fix the game. After 3-2-1, then what's next? Are we back to no limit? And then are we just on this vicious cycle of repeating? No, 3-2-1 would be horrible for the game. One, it puts all the pressure on one tank. So you're actually going to get less tank players because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want to deal with the pressure. And then also the balancing issues. Who would you consider a main tank that is viable for one to solo tank? Reinhardt Orisa? Winston isn't a solo tank.
Right.
Wrecking Ball isn't a solo tank. Sigma isn't. Roadhog isn't. D.Va isn't. Zarya isn't. So you're talking about having to gut and redo probably the majority of all the tanks to make them legit main tanks. And if you take someone like Roadhog, D.Va and move them to DPS, then you have to completely redo all of that. You're talking about changing the fundamentals of the game plus the heroes behind the fundamental aspects of the game. And that is something that is just not good. People want 3-2-1 because they want to change up the current meta, not that they want 3-2-1. They just want to change things up.
They just want the hunters and the dragons to succeed.
Mm-hmm. So, like, that's really what people want.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like it. So, okay. Then when do you move support players into DPS? Like, when you start doing that? Or, I just in practice, sure. If they built the game around doing something like this, sure. Not 4 or 5 years after the fact.
Right.
And that's why Jeff said this. He's like, we tried it out. It just didn't work. Because it's never going to work and it's never going to come out. It won't. There will not be a 3-2-1, hero system. It just won't happen. So get that out of your mind. But I like that they tried figuring out ways to quicken the DPS queue. Like, that's cool. There are other ways around getting to that. Yeah, that they don't have to completely change the fundamentals of the game to appease DPS players. Like, that's what this is. The people who really want this want the game to fundamentally change so they have shorter queue times.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they think it will make the game better. It's because they want shorter queues. Well, you know what? Maybe you should tank. How about that? Or you support. Or, I mean, now they could also do things like, how about this? During events, those loot boxes you get actually be event loot boxes.
Well, that's just blasphemy. We can't have that.
Yeah, it's... There are other ways around it and they can do other ways around the programming to make this work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I just don't. I'm not a fan of 3-2-1 whatsoever.
The key thing here is, when it comes to potential fixes of any kind, whenever they introduce something, you have to think about what it will do for the overall landscape of the game. And a lot of time, these perceived fixes actually introduce a lot more problems to the game than what they would actually patch. If we were to ever see anything like this, it would probably just be a role restriction for, like, a potential arcade mode. Outside of that, I would never imagine that we would see anything like this in the base game of Overwatch.
I mean, you know what 3-2-1 would bring?
What's that?
Snows. Zarya and D.Va in DPS. You get both of them in DPS with Mei. You get your Lucio. You get your Baguette. And then you get, like, your Reinhardt. You have Snows. So we're back to where we were before 2-2-2. Like, it's just bad. Yeah.
That would be a lot of classifying things as other things, but
yeah. All right. Asam Jello does have a good point in chat. 3-2-1 would work if there was, I wouldn't quite say 100 heroes, but that's a lot more.
So we're talking about like 15 years down the line.
If there was like 7-8 main, like legit main tanks, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Or, stuff like that. But we are ways off on that.
I mean, we're only hitting like 3 to 4 a year. Like, okay.
Yeah. So 2029, we might be able to introduce it.
Well, no, we'll see.
Let's go Overwatch 4 there, Booger, not Overwatch 3. Overwatch 4.
That depends on how long they want to milk out the sequel. And how much, like, PvE content they actually want to introduce in that lifespan. In that case. But anyways, so outside of that, I will note we are going to talk about what is happening on the PTR. But before we actually talk about the PTR patch in itself, there was something that the player base had noticed that wasn't in the patch notes, that they thought was the buff, that is in fact a bug that is confirmed by the lead software engineer, Bill Warnick, and it revolves around Symmetra and her teleport ability. Now, if you hop on the PTR, you will notice that the teleporter instantly deploys when you place it. There's like not like that. I don't even know like what the recovery time is on this, like a second or whatever. But there's a slight pause before you can actually use the teleport. And basically, like if this were to get patched in the game, it would have made teleporters hard to counter. It could have played a very large role in regards to dive compositions, being able to essentially instantly teleport into the enemy backline. Now, you could also say the same about, like, doing the sentry turret bomb as well, which has been a pretty prominent thing, just trying to blow up a support with that. But you know, like I was trying to think about this, and I was like, well, I don't hate the idea. Like if this bug actually didn't get fixed, but if it were to get patched alive, there would definitely need to be changes to the actual ability. In order to make this work where it wouldn't feel super oppressive in the game and just a pain in the ass to deal with on that front. So I want to get your thoughts. Let's say instant teleport is a thing that they introduce into the game. Would you leave teleport the way that it currently is, be it cooldown, health, anything like that, total amount of usage, or would you look to, say, lower the health in order to make it feel better in regards to the counterplay aspect of it?
I actually like how it's bugged on the PTR right now. Because, I mean, okay, Symmetra's strong to a degree. Like, Symmetra's strong in the lower game, but what you want is you need Symmetra viable in the higher end games.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the kind of thing that would make Symmetra more viable in the higher end games. So I actually hope I read this and I'm like, God, that would be awesome if they just left it the way it is on PTR right now and just change this bug into what it actually, like, the ability actually is. Because why? I mean, it's a teleporter. Why is there a ramp up time? You know, so
It's because they haven't finalized the technology. Okay, Ed? It's kind of like in Doom with the portals in that case.
But, like, you can still counter it by seeing the portal come up and getting out of the way.
Or
you don't have to be able
destroying it.
Yeah, like, you can destroy it. Yeah, somebody may get through, but if you turn and destroy it, if one person comes through and it's in the middle of your team, that one person is screwed.
Right.
Like, you're at the advantage then. You win in that case. So I don't think that extra second it takes for the portal to get up is that detrimental. So I want them to do this, but I think Symmetra's teleporter is the thing with her kit that needs to be buffed to make her viable, and this could be it. But that's just me. I actually like Symmetra.
I would love to see this primarily because it would mean that I could just get on the flank that much more, which I tend to do anyway with Symmetra. So I don't absolutely hate the idea, but you know, if they were to change anything, it would probably just lower the overall health of the teleporter.
Yeah.
In that regard. But anyways, so there was another post on Reddit, which initially, you know, I was kind of like, this is kind of interesting. You know, the more I was like looking into the data, or you know, just the general consensus from the community, you know, there were definitely some things that, you know, they took away that were just like, was this probably the best way about going around collecting the data? And it kind of like revolved around the amount of buffs and nerfs that have been given to heroes since the game had come out. Now, a lot of this kind of came out because of, you know, the power creep discussion that has been pretty prevalent here, you know, within the past week and a half at this point. Obviously, you know, we kind of brushed up on this past week. And, you know, there were a couple of things that were kind of off about it. Like, for instance, it didn't really showcase anything that was a net buff or nerf in regards to whether it was a bug fix. You know, it didn't... it included, like, reworks, even if they didn't know if it was a buff or a nerf. So, like, that was kind of all over the place. But the biggest takeaway, Ed, when I was cycling through the posts and everything, was... overall, since launch, like, the number of heroes that have basically seen net nerfs compared to, like, what their current iteration is, compared to, like, the launch, you know, buffs, and, like, characters that are about where they were at launch. So the breakdown that what we saw was that 7 heroes have seen net nerfs. So that would include Sigma, Hammond, Roadhog, Genji, Widow, Tracer, and Moira. And then There were some characters that have kind of like stayed about the same in regards to their power level. So that would include heroes like Diva, Zarya, Sombra. The other ones listed were Mercy, Briggs, Symmetra, and Torbjorn. With all of the other heroes, and I didn't write them all out because it was more than what I already listed, had seen net buffs at this point. Now, you know, a lot of people look at this as being evident that, you know, power creep exists, and, you know, you and I are both on this, on that side of the argument, so, you know, we're not going to be argumentative about that in that regard, but it does kind of, like, tie in with, like, what we feel like. This is a game that has constantly looked as trying to buff characters across the board rather than lowering what the perceived meta heroes are in order to try to balance out the game. Because, you know, 17 to 7 is, I wouldn't say completely one-sided, but it does heavily favor a one direction in regards to the game balance. And it does hold water in regards to the power creep that we are seeing. And, you know, we'll talk about, you know, some buffs and nerfs here in just a second. But, you know, were you at all surprised by just the overall breakdown of what we saw within the data here?
No, not even remotely. Like, we all know power creep is a thing, but power creep is something that is in every single game where they, on a either regular or semi-regular basis, add new characters or new whatever. There's power creep because you don't know what you're going to be doing in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like, you know, usually it's you're buffing up the older characters to meet the new characters that you come out with. And that's what it is. What this kind of also screams to me is outside Sigma, they generally underpower new heroes. And then they buff them. That has kind of been the case. Now, sometimes they buff them too much in the form of like Anna and Baguette, and then they have to nerf them. But it's one of those things where this is fairly skewed as well. Because, yes, you're going to have to... You want to bring up... You're not going to nerf the top characters to make the shit characters better. Like, that's just not something you're going to do. Like, right now, if they were... All right, what's a complete and absolute trash character in the game?
Soldier.
Okay. All right.
Since Baptiste is the better soldier.
So let's just say this. So let's say they bring Reaper and Mei down to what's better for the game? Nerfing Reaper and Mei to Soldier's level, or buffing Soldier?
Yeah, but I feel like also part of that is just, you know, you kind of factor in the characters that also incorporate a lot of crowd control into the game.
Yes,
not all
crowd
of them
control is...
That's its own power creep.
That's its own, like, that's a whole separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking more like buffing and nerfing heroes, like the underplayed heroes.
Right.
Because that's how you change metas. Is you buff underplayed heroes, and then you nerf a little bit of the meta heroes, but you slowly buff characters. It's how every game goes. Every single game. Are you telling me that League of Legends doesn't have power creep from when it first came out? Because if you tell me that, you're freaking lying.
It also has like 800 champions.
Yeah.
And I know that's an exaggeration, but it's...
But okay, here's another thing. Hearthstone.
Mm-hmm.
Hearthstone has some of the biggest power creep I've ever seen, and that's a flippin' card game. You know, like a large portion of the original cards in Hearthstone are just utterly, purely useless because they got new cards. Like, so there's power creep in literally everything. So you're gonna have buffs, you're gonna have nerfs, you're gonna have all that fun bejazzle. It's just it's just the way it is. So this was not surprising to me whatsoever, but we both agree that there is power creep in this game, so it's not surprising.
I love that Booger brought up Pokemon is the king of power creep. So like
Yeah.
let's look back to like the base game. You know, you got like your Pikachu, he has like tackle, and then you compare it to like these tag team Pokemon that are in the game, or just like GXs that hit you for like I don't know, like 5 to 8 times more of what your base HP would be in the original game. Yeah, case in point.
Yeah, like, Icehead kind of makes a good point in chat. Like, what if you came back to the game and you were just like, after 2 years and the core heroes all played the same? You're just like, well, shit, this is boring. Like, I expect a new game. Like, I expect a new experience. And you're playing the exact same heroes, doing the exact same things for the exact same damage. It's not that fun. So yeah, this is not surprising to me, but I'm also I wouldn't say I'm a fan of power creep, but I know that power creep is needed in every game.
Right.
Also, play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and that puts Pokemon to TCG to shame in power creep. Star Wars Galaxy of Hero is the most power creep because it's a free to play game, but the ones that all the veterans get, like all the old characters, are useless because the new characters cost like $150. So they're gonna make the $150 characters just top king shit and make the other characters useless. Screw free to play players. So,
Well,
but yeah, that's my rant for today. There's probably gonna be a couple more, I'd say.
Well, speaking of nerfs, let's see what's happening on the PTR, which dropped on Thursday this past week on January 9th. Now, I will note, there's a very good chance that this is gonna go live on Tuesday.
When's the last time they changed anything on the PTR?
Well,
and then that went live. I can't
I'm
remember
trying to
a time.
there was something
There was
recent.
once.
It
There
was,
was
I
one.
got it. It was the Moira Fade change that they did.
Ah,
we could
that was
literally
it.
fade out of anything in the game, and everyone's like, "What the, Blizz? This is broken."
Yep.
That's what it was. Boom, got it.
Yeah. But other than that,
It's outside of that, it had been a while. But anyways, so what we are seeing on the PTR, probably going live next week with the event, is a number of nerfs to meta heroes, essentially. One of which is not meta and completely ruins the Overwatch League career of a streamer. Spoilers. It is a Doomfist nerf. So, you and I, like, we knew, like, some of this was coming, and that we were looking at some of the abilities, and we kind of speculated on the direction that we would have taken in regards to balancing said abilities. Now we actually know what they are doing across the board. So we knew that they were going to look at Baptiste in regards to his immortality field, and they did 2 changes to it. They changed the max duration. They reduced that from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. Then you also increase the cooldown of Immortality Field from 20 to 25 seconds. So they kind of double dipped on that front. Now, outside of that, Ed, they also increased the cost of his ultimate Amplification Matrix by 20%. And, this was definitely needed. I can't tell you how many times that even as someone who doesn't play BAP and isn't good at BAP, that you could basically earn a window every single fight, or minimum have like 80% towards your next ult, and then be like, oh, well, I guess this is going to be an automatic win on that front. So, I was kind of surprised that they double dipped. I don't think like the max duration would have been the direction I would have chose. We were primarily looking at a cooldown increase. But the whole thing about the lamp was that they felt like it was too oppressive in the game. So I want to get your thoughts on how it is now, now that we have seen it getting kind of like double dipped in regards to a nerf on this front.
Well, all right. So Lamp got poo slaughtered. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Like, Lamp got slaughtered pretty well. And like you said, they double dipped in the ultimate, which again was you could get his ultimate insanely quick. I just I don't know if this is enough to curb Baptiste right now. Yes, Lamp is obviously less effective, but you did nothing, and a lot of people call for damage decrease.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the healing is kind of insane too.
Yeah, I guess the big thing, at least with Immortality Field now, is you have to think about using it a little bit more than in the past. It's more situational. But, like, I wouldn't say it's completely useless as an ability now.
No, I mean, when you break it down, you lose 7 seconds of lamp time. Mm-hmm. Like, that is not outrageous in my mind. So, but being able to still heal and like Baptiste does, and again do the damage that Baptiste can, I still think Baptiste is going to be meta regardless of the change.
And we will kind of talk about the pro scene in regards to how this patch could affect the higher end of that, because we do know that spoilers, this is going to be the patch that we play come next month when the Overwatch League is back on for the 2020 season. So another character that a lot of people have had issues with lately has been Mei. Now, with Mei, they primarily were looking at the Endothermic Blaster. That would be her primary fire. So they were looking at the slowing effect, and they reduced the enemy movement speed from to like 20 to 70%, which was down from 30% to 90%. So, you know, you're looking at, 20% differential on that front. And then they also looked at the slowing effect duration, and they reduced that from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. Now, Ed, I'll be honest, when I looked at this, I was just like, okay, that's not quite what I was hoping for. Because for me, and a lot of the community, the biggest thing about the slow effect is the fact that you're able to slow multiple targets. And that has always been kind of a nuisance where, it's impacting multiple people, and a lot of people do not like that ability. So rather than go in that direction, they were just looking at the individual slowing effect. So I want to get your thoughts on taking it in this direction as opposed to what the community outcry about the actual crowd control has been. Would this be what you would have done, or would you have preferred to see them remove the ability to pierce and multi-freeze?
I think I would have done something about the multi-freeze as well. This is a good start, but I think if they could have gone one step further and reduced the multi-freeze, like reduced more of like you have the primary target and the secondary target slows even slower type of situation. You could have done something along those lines to really kind of curb Mei's kit, but not nerf her into the ground. Because even if you reduce the multi-freezing, she's still very viable. It's just less annoying as hell. And I think that's kind of what they needed to do. I think they dropped the ball on this one a little. I still think Mei is going to be meta. I don't think these changes are drastic enough to warrant not playing Mei at this point. Because, my God, she's annoying. Like the ice wall with the multi-freeze, the ice block. It's so annoying. God. Remember when nobody played May and we're like, buff May, buff May, buff May, and we're like, ha ha ha. And then now we're like, ah, shit. We asked, we received, we regret.
Please, take it back.
Please, Biz. Kill her off in a cinematic so we don't have to play her in Overwatch 2.
If only.
Oh, it'd be so good.
So the other change was one we already knew about, and that was with the D.Va booster. And they didn't make any like additional tweaks compared to like what we heard about on the forum. So the booster cooldown was changed from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. You know, again, like they were talking about like trying to make D.Va more of a midfield type tank. You know, it gives you more opportunity to escape, you know, go into the back line or whatever in that regard. I don't think that's going to be enough. You know, being able to cover a lot of ground is also in itself a way for power creep. You know, it all goes back, guys. I swear on that front. But like there's some interesting things you can do with this. Like I know specifically like on Lei Shan Tower when it comes to, God, I cannot remember the name of the freaking map, but the one with the midpoint that is just a huge tower. In this case, but like you're actually able to like get to the almost like the tippy top of said tower using the booster cooldown now. Not that that's gonna be like super useful, like it's just something that you can do. But you know, maybe you can make use of some interesting angles with your self-destruct. But outside of that, like this is more ground coverage at the actual ground and not just like aerial assault, so to speak, on that regard. So not like the biggest change. I don't really expect D.Va to suddenly become meta in that regard, but D.Va wasn't the only tank that saw changes. They also looked at Orisa, specifically when it comes to her Fortify. Now, they looked at the damage reduction of it, and they reduced it from 50% to 40%. And I know you and I have, like, kind of talked about this one. And what I do want to note, before I get your thoughts on this, is when it comes to Orisa, the community as a whole has felt pretty split in regards to what part of her toolkit they would like to see change. And it was almost 50-50 in this regard between her Fortify damage reduction and also her halt ability. Now, they address one of them, so again, like, there is probably going to be community outcry. But, you know, you were kind of looking at this one as something that didn't really need to be changed. So I want to kind of like get your thoughts behind that, and you know why you feel like Fortify was in a good spot, at least in its current iteration on live.
Well, I honestly don't think Orisa's Fortify was in a good condition. I think that I'm in the 50% of Fortify should have been nerfed and Holt should have been left alone, because when you have my reasoning behind not wanting to change Halt is because I don't think it's that broken of an ability, and the ability to manipulate movement of others as a tank is huge. Mm-hmm. And when you start screwing with that, you start destroying a character. Case in point, Roadhog. When you like Roadhog was in a really good place, and then they kept screwing with his hook.
Yeah, they gutted him.
They like once they started touching the hook, they gutted Roadhog. Once you start messing around with Halt for Orisa, you're gutting Orisa. It already has a pretty weak ass shield. Like, let's be real, that shield is nothing. So the problem is the shield with the Fortify allowed basically to have 2 shields up at different times. So by nerfing the Fortify, you're basically, for layman terms, you're nerfing the second shield that Orisa has. So that is what I like. I don't think Halt is that big of an issue because Halt wasn't an issue before.
I feel like for a lot of people, it's more so with the amount of combinations that it kind of like unlocks with other abilities. It's more that aspect.
That's the point of the ability, though.
But it's more in the sense that it's just a regular ability as opposed to something like Graviton Surge, which is essentially the same thing, you know.
Yes, but with Halt, you can get out of it.
Mhm.
Like you're sucked in, but you can still move after that. Graviton Surge, you can't. Like, it basically just it's to me it's slightly better than what is Baguette's ability called, which he chucks the hammer.
Whip shot.
Sure, whip shot. It's no different than that because it displaces you
Mhm.
into a spot you don't want to be in, but you can still get out of it.
So I guess the question becomes at this point with Halt, what avenue the community would want to explore? Would it just be a cooldown situation where they would like to see it increase at that point? Because you know, I just remember in the Reddit thread when they were doing like a thing of like, well, how would you balance the game? Like the biggest things at the top were Maze Freeze with the Pearson, and Orissa's 2 abilities at that point. So I would imagine it would probably just revolve around the cooldown usage of it. But another one was with Hanzo, was another like really wanted change, specifically for Storm Arrow. A lot of people are not happy with Storm Arrow. Imagine that. They hated the Scatter Arrow. They don't like Storm Arrow. But guys, they are looking at his Storm Bow, his primary, and they are looking at his projectile speed, at least the max projectile speed. So they reduce that from 125 to 110. So it's less like if I'm reading this right, it's like less of projectile and more like hit scan. At least that's what it feels like. So it's kind of like back to what it initially was, where it feels like more of a snipe. And I think it also comes into play with like the fall off damage too, if I'm not mistaken. So you'll only be effective from, so long, and like the further away you are, the more likely you are to be able to dodge the incoming arrow at this point. So, and because it is a primary, it kind of just impacts everything for him as well. So, a lot of Hanzo, a lot of Mei has been in the current meta. And, like we actually have seen quite a bit of double sniper. So do you think like this is going to be enough to kind of maybe move double sniper out of viability as like a whole, and maybe just keep it in its niche of like say Junkertown being a primary example?
No, because I still it's still double sniper. It's just Storm Arrow is less potent. Also, if you are, because now the projectile speed is from 125 to 110, you can now dodge the arrows. Turn off your computer. Go outside. Get some sunlight, because you're playing too much of this game.
Well, like
if you are able to anticipate and dodge the arrows,
it's easier to do at very long distances, but anything like short to mid range is probably still going to be impossible.
Yes, it's just I'm like this is another tinkering of the ability. They got into the math of it, which just my eyes glazed over when they're like 25 plus 100 X charge for a total. Nope, I'm out. As soon as they start bringing algebra equations into developer comments, I'm piecing the F out. No, I don't think this will really change much for the double sniper meta, just because he's still really good. And all you got to do is play him more of a mid-range sniper, and you're content. So if anything would have happened, if Hanzo was to fall out, I think a good alternative might be McCree to replace Hanzo. Just because if you're going mid-range sniper, a McCree might be better. If you're playing like Hanzo was better than McCree because you could play mid-range, you could play long range.
That's only because Bob would never do anything.
Mm-hmm. But now, if you are only playing Hanzo mid-range, I think you play McCree over Hanzo.
Unless they have a Widow.
Unless they have a Widow, but then you have a Widow. And if you have faith in your Widowmaker, you will win those duels.
Well, this is assuming that your team wants to run Widow. If you're running Widow versus McCree and you're the McCree, I got bad news for you.
Yeah, but you also got to have faith in your Widow to be better than their Widow and to negate it. Because if there's another Widow up and I have a Widow on my team, I'm always like, God damn it, Widow, it's your job. You need to take out the other Widow.
Mm-hmm.
But, you could also play Ashe in that instance too, which wouldn't be
Bob?
bad.
You can play Bob.
Bob with Dynamite, because Dynamite's still a good ability. So, I don't know. I don't think this completely gets Hanzo out of double sniper situations.
Yeah, so the way I look at this is between the Mei slow-in changes and just the sniper changes that we have seen, as ISAM did mention, like it does allow flankers a chance now. So there is a chance that we could start to see more dive come into play with this patch. Now, whether or not that's going to happen remains to be seen. But at the pro level, that makes me very excited because it could open up a lot more possibilities in regards to what these teams are running and whether or not we'll start to see certain teams have different synergies in regards to what they like to primarily run. But that is not the last change that we have to talk about, because they also looked at Doomfist, which was one of the more WTF changes, at least of this patch, and that was with the Ryzen uppercut recovery time, which they increased from 0.2 to 0.5 seconds. Now, as I mentioned, you look at a team like the Philadelphia Fusion, went out, signed Shipsa, a streamer, known for Doomfist, and he's not been too happy about this, and understandably so. Because, I'll be honest, I don't play a ton of Doomfist, but when I was testing this, I was like, oh, I'm just kind of like chilling here, like in the sky. I'm gonna die. And that's honestly how it feels anytime you use a Ryzen uppercut. And, of course, you have to talk about combos when it comes to Doomfist, and it feels so off-putting, and it makes you way too susceptible at this point.
Yeah, it's with Doomfist, the death of Doomfist is downtime. Like, I think Jake actually put this best. He's like, this is drastic because when Doomfist can't be doing an ability, he's dead in the water. He is utterly useless. So, like, while it may only be 0.3 seconds, that's enough time for a team to just destroy you as Doomfist. Because if you jump in there and that stuff's on cooldown for 0.3 seconds, you're gonna die. So, this is just another nerf to Doomfist, because Doomfist is one of the most disrupting characters in the game. Because they can go through shields. So, I don't know.
The shields
What
that they
shields?
nerfed? The
Yes.
shields that aren't up as long?
He can go through them. Now, again, maybe there's something in the future that, like, new characters, that this is, there's a reason behind it, but this just seems like a straight nerf to Doomfist, which, whatever, I'm fine with. I don't play Doomfist ever. Even in Mystery Heroes, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna die within the first 30 seconds.
How quickly can I feed? All right.
How quickly can I die?
Well,
I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've gotten a Doomfist ultimate.
What about a kill?
Oh, no. No, there's no killing.
So anyway, another common trend that we've seen here lately, at least in regards to the Overwatch League, has been on-air talent having departures and not returning in 2020. Now, I will note, Ed, the season starts here in a couple of weeks. It's like three weeks from this week. And we still don't know all the details. Primarily in regards to on-air talent. We don't know the broadcast terms. We still don't have the full rosters for every team. This goes on and on. But anyways, we do know that Semler and Malik are both on the way out. Now, what the status of Hexagrams is going to be at this point, we don't know. But it seems like Semler is going back to casting CSGO. And a lot of it kind of boiled down to a couple of things. Like, a lot of it was just how much the game has changed since the inaugural season. And, it's becoming more and more difficult for him to cast the game. A lot of it was just, like, he didn't want to fake enjoyment. Because, if he was struggling, he wasn't really having the best time at it. Now, the community can be a weird thing at times when it comes to social media. There's been like a lot of Semler hate like floating around here, probably more so than lately. All of them just come out of the woodwork at once. And I'll admit, like when Semler first came into the scene, I was a little underwhelmed. But the difference I saw from him in the inaugural season compared to like what we got in the second season was night and day difference. I thought he came out a lot stronger in that regard. But he never struck me as someone whose right fit was Overwatch. So he's going to be back to his grassroots, going back to Counter-Strike, so that's great for him. And will Hex go to the studio desk? I don't know, but like he had been doing the Bud Light the happy hour, I think was the name of it, that they were doing on the Bud Light channel, which was all desk oriented, and like kind of like a recap type show. It was like kind of done on the side, so like maybe it will be an easy transition. Maybe they'll find him a new casting partner. They could honestly go either direction. But we still don't have confirmation of whether or not Hex will be back either. So at this point, who the F knows? But we do know Malik is also out, so we are going to need a new host. So this offseason, basically, we have seen 5 departures from the on-air talent. Now, they've also brought in a couple. It's still a little offset in that regard as well. But where do you think this leaves us right now? Because, like, we know they want to kind of, like, station like, caster duos. We know everything in regards to the desk will be on site, at least in, LA, in a studio. So they don't have to travel with that. Like, how many more people do you expect that the league is going to bring on at this point?
Bring on?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And will that number be bigger than any other people that are leaving at this point?
Yes, I think the number that they will be bringing on will be bigger than the number of people who are leaving. That includes, I'm including Jake Costa and ZP. Mm-hmm. Because, obviously, right now, comparatively, they've lost 2 people.
Yeah, it's 5-3.
Yeah, it's 5-3. And let's be real. I didn't mind Semler. He just, like you said, he just wasn't. He didn't seem to fit in with Overwatch. He just didn't seem that it was his game. Ice Ham in chat has my prediction exactly. I think Hexagram is going to the desk. Mm-hmm. I could see Hexagram maybe being like it being Hex, Costa, Zoe with Avast as the host. Because here, let's be real. We lost with Malik. We lost a part-time host, and that was it.
Yeah, you kind of like split duties with Puckett.
So, but you don't need, with the reduction in schedule, I don't think you need 2 desk hosts at this point. because you really only have games for 2 days. Now, when they have games over in Korea and stuff like that, Korea and China, I don't think they'll have like a live desk to go back to, because you're not going to have a live desk for 24 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just not feasible. So I think you're going to have a desk of Avast, Hex, Zoe, Custa. That will be your desk, in my opinion. And then they probably will bring in 2 more casting teams, so another 4 people on top of that.
Well, I will note, like, there is an alternative to this. Like, if they want to do something desk-oriented for, like, the overseas stuff, at least with Korea and China, they do have the ability to use their translator, you know, like Emily and Jimmy. Like, that is a possibility that we could see. I don't know if that would be the direction that they would go.
They could also have something, because let's be real, us in the US are not going to be up watching Korea and China live.
More than likely.
Like that,
And like
yeah,
99% of the cases.
yeah. So like that's not something where like, oh my god, we don't have a desk. No, they could have specifically like a China desk.
Mm-hmm.
And cover it over there so they have it, because we know that the casters are not going to be traveling to China.
Right.
They might have a China desk over there or something like that. That I could maybe see. But I don't see them having multiple desks or multiple hosts in the US to cover the US and EU games.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you bring in 2 more casting teams. And I think they keep Danny and Emily. I don't know what they do with them. Like, do you send them to, because like, do you send them to homestands every week? Because like, they're vital for interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't really, unless they do remote interviews. Like, which is completely an option, but I don't know. I don't think losing Semler and Malik, I think, were 2 of the least impactful changes they could make. Like, Malik was okay. He's a good esports caster. But I don't know if him focusing on one specific game is the best thing for him. Because he's more of a broad picture kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Semler is more like is going back to CSGO because that's what he knows. That's what he does. That's what he's comfortable with. So, you know what? It's gonna be sad to see them leave, but I think just in the case, same case as Monty and Doa, I think this is actually good for the league.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like at this point, like the reason why we haven't heard anything in regards to like who's coming on is because they were kind of waiting to see who all wasn't returning.
and that could very well be it.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that's leaving that I'm actually truly sad and I think is bad that is leaving is Puckett. Puckett was the ringleader kind of person, and you could tell Puckett was the ringleader. So I think that is going to be a drastic loss for the team. He may not have been everyone's favorite. But he was definitely, I think he was the biggest loss for everyone.
Well, he saw that they were nerfing Doomfist, and he's like, well, I'm not going to have the same effect in the talent takedown, so I'm out. Peace.
Dude, he John Elway'd the shit out of that. He's like, I'm going out on top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going out undefeated. Screw all of you. I rule. Well, Doyle rules.
Well,
Yes.
that's not the only changes that we've seen this past week with the league. We do have 2 pretty notable names that have basically gone from I'm not gonna say started in the Overwatch League, because in one of the cases that's definitely not the case. But you have two DPS players who are now going to their respective academy teams. So we have Taimu, formerly Dallas Fuel, now on Team Envy. Then we have Mangachu for the Toronto Defiant, moving to a two-way contract. So he'll be joining the Montreal Rebellion for this upcoming season of Contenders. Now, I have to say, like, with Taimu, this is him stepping away from guaranteed money. He could have easily just collected a check, rode the bench the entire season. I think mentally that would have destroyed him. He wants to compete, and this is going to guarantee that he sees some playtime. Granted, it's not going to be on stage because it's Contenders. It'll be online, but, potentially, maybe down the line, we get the Gauntlet, the interregional competition, so maybe we'll get to see Taimu on stage at some point this season. But, this has been someone who's been at the core of the game's competitive scene since the beta days, primarily known for his hit scan. And, he was one of the OGs in Envious, who at the time were the best team in the world. And really one of the few teams out of US or even EU that have been able to go into Korea and just dominate, dating all the way back to that first season of Apex, which, we've seen other NA teams try to do that. And I'm going to use air quotes with NA because they're based in NA, but they weren't fully NA. Like Fusion Uni, who tried to do the same thing at Contenders Korea. Didn't quite happen. Not quite the same results in that case. But, we also have Mangachu, who, on the Defiant roster right now, probably would have got lost in the shuffle with their additions. And, of course, we'll talk about Toronto later when we do our Atlantic North preview. But they would have had 4 DPS going into 2020 season. He probably wouldn't have gotten started over, Agilities or Surefour. Maybe occasionally over Logics on that front. But the Defiant, staff is very high on him. I don't expect him to go out of house in regards to, getting traded away or anything like that. Depending on how the Defiant do this year, maybe, they'll bring him back at some point, whether some of the other DPS editions don't quite live up to, I don't want to say their namesake, but more just the hype kind of built around them on that front. But, I'm happy that we'll get to see Taimu play, because it was very obvious he just wasn't going to see the stage on the Dallas Fuel. More so this year than ever before because of the additions that they have had with Doha and Decay. And, at least he, if this is going to be, his swan song, so to speak, at least he can go out looking to prove that he still, quote, has it, and not just being oh, I'm just going to write out my contract in the main roster here.
Yeah, no, this is a bold move by Taimu, and not something we've really seen, because not many players are going to be yeah, I'm going to give up the money to go actually play. Now granted, I will say there's probably some perks that he's keeping. He's probably still going to be living under the Dallas Fuel House or whatever their housing place is, and stuff like that, using their practice facilities and all that stuff. So he gets all that. He just gets less base pay, essentially, but he gets to actually play. And Taimu is probably one of those people who has made a decent amount of money playing esports that he's comfortable. He's won a lot, early on in his career.
Yeah, not lately.
Not lately, but he probably got a massive contract for the Overwatch League.
Mm-hmm.
And he got 2 years out of that, so he's probably doing pretty well. And for mental stability, it's a good thing. So that's awesome. Mangachu sucks. It just sucks. Because I want to see him in the Overwatch League. But yeah, he's not going to start over, Surefour or Agilities. So, I mean, heck, he's not, probably won't start over Logics either. So he's the fourth man out. But then he goes to a team where they have Leaf.
Yeah, he's playing with the
well.
effing Leaf.
Like, you're playing with, like, you had two, like, who the hell's gonna play Pharah? Like,
Mangachu.
I
don't know. Leaf's a curious case because, like, well, they're nerfing some of his heroes. Like, who knows?
Like, did you see Leaf in the World Cup?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was So who knows what they're gonna do there? So it just sucks. But yeah, it's at least he's gonna be on a 2-way contract. I don't know if Timer's just not even on a 2-way contract.
Mm-mm.
That's another surprising thing. So that's probably that's probably why they were able to go out and sign Doha, trade for Decay, sign Gamsu, re-sign Note, is because Taimu did this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Gotta love Taimu. Sucks about Mangachu. But, we'll see if they're back.
I like how there's like a mini earthquake over by you because your camera keeps shaking. I was like, what the hell's going on over there? It's just constantly moving. But anyways, so we do have a new sign in this week that I do want to talk about, primarily because it kind of fits the narrative of the offseason moves for this team. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of the changes in regards to the offseason that happened over the past week, primarily because some of the teams we haven't talked about yet with our division previous, but the one I wanted to note was a new signing for the Seoul Dynasty because it fits the other signings that they have had from a certain London Spitfire team because they have picked up former London Spitfire flex support Bdoshin. So Bdoshin going to be reuniting with both Gesture and Prophet. So it gives them another flex support option outside of someone that they had promoted over the offseason, that being Creative from Gen G Esports. And, as of right now, we have the Dynasty moving up to a 9-man roster. You have Toby being the only one left from that inaugural season roster, the only one from, that lunatic high core that this franchise was built around initially. And, you still have probably, like, the same issue in regards to, like, the chip on the shoulder of the Dynasty because they are the only team based out of Korea. Now, early on, we were kind of thinking, like, well, Dynasty could put themselves in a position to make some power moves this offseason. And I've had my reservations about some of the sign-ins and some of the decision-making behind this team. Now, I love getting Prophet. That was a massive sign-in for really any team out there. And the Gesture pickup, I was kind of, it's okay. And a lot of that just boiled down to the fact that this past season, you look at what our tank line was able to do, whether it was Fisher at a time, or Marvel, or Michelle. I did not have any issues with anyone on the tank line. I thought we looked good across the board. That was probably our most consistent line that we have seen. So getting Gesture was like, well, it's more of a synergy type thing. And I guess you could say the same thing about Bdoshin. But then you kind of like also go into the fact that, the Spitfire go from a championship team to a team that did middle of the pack, but it was pretty evident that they didn't quite have the championship capabilities anymore, and then they let go of a lot of pieces. They blew up that team, they completely restructured, and here we are with some interesting experiments in regards to London Spitfire, which we'll get into. So I guess at the end of the day, the question becomes, well, will those issues that happened with the Spitfire inch their way into the Dynasty's core, and whether or not, the Spitfire were the right core of players to actually go after this offseason, knowing some of the level of talent that the Dynasty still technically had in-house, be it at the main roster or even at their Academy team roster with Gen G Like, if we were to have had Glister and Prophet, I would be feeling pretty damn good. But, you know, with the moves that we have made, just looking at the bigger picture, I honestly don't know if this will be an improvement for the Dynasty. I don't think that moves him out of, like, play-in. But I still feel like right now, the Dynasty are middle of the pack and not an elite team.
What you talking about, Willis? Like, let's be real here. Gesture is an upgrade over Michelle. Yes.
Maybe on
Yes.
Orisa.
I'll take Gesture over Michelle.
You
take
got your
Gesture
tanks backwards.
I'll take Gesture over Michelle. I'll take Gesture over Marvel. Like, Gesture's the best player on the tank line. Now, the thing is I'm thinking more along the lines of double shield with Marvel and Gesture. Like, I think those two will be the tanks. That's just me, but whatever. Bedosian, like, all right, yes, they took 3 people from the London Spitfire, but they took the only 3 good players. Like, Birdring on the Spitfire was at best.
I mean, he benched himself, so.
Yeah, like, you know, yeah, when you take Gesture, all right, sorry, Fury, he was decent.
I guess my point is more look at what you gave up in order to make this happen, and whether you feel like that is a good balance between the two sides.
What did they truly give up?
Fleta and Glister being the biggest proponents here.
Okay. So it's not so much the tank line or the support line. Because I don't think Bedosian versus Jaehong is really one way or the other that big of a difference. And I think they actually got better because I think Creative now is a very good backup.
Yeah, he was above average in Contenders Korea, but like people weren't gonna pick him over like Alarm or like Gain Engine.
But as a backup flex support, he's a good backup flex. I'd take him as a backup flex support on any team. So I'd say they got better on support. They got better on tank. I think Prophet is better than Fleta. Personally. It's kind of down to Illicit and Fitz. Could one of them be better than Glitter? Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, when you break it down like that, they improved on the support line, they improved on the tank line, and they probably broke even on DPS. So I think they're higher than middle of the pack. I have them top 6.
Yeah, I think I have them 10th right now.
Let me check real quick. Yeah, you do have them 10th. I mean, you're better than how Spider has them. Spider has them 12th. The hell, Spider?
Yeah, it's more so for me. It's just like
is it because they burned you too many times?
It's more so the fact that like we're gonna have this identity of being a London Light, or like my 2 teams are basically like they're intermixing, and I don't know if both teams are gonna benefit or if it's just gonna blow up in both faces, or one team is gonna look great, one team's gonna be crap. It's more so like I look at Glister and the amount of potential this kid has and how much he's been able to pop off, and it's just like, well, that should have been the person to pair with Prophet, and then all of a sudden, Dynasty are looking like a top 3 team in the league and being in that discussion. And now it's just like, well, sure, we improved from the inaugural season going into the second season, but would that be a continued trend? I don't know. It felt like more of a lateral move than like a progression moving forward. But it's going to be a lot of pressure, not just on whoever the secondary DPS is, how it's going to complement Prophet. And, you know, hopefully we don't have a Birdring situation on that front for our second DPS. But it also kind of like puts a chip on Toby's shoulder, where it's just like, well, I'm the only guy from this inaugural season roster. Like I still gotta prove my worth at this point. So like those are like really the two key spots at this point where it's just like we're gonna have to see just how the chips fall. But I don't know. It's a weird thing, but like I feel like a lot of it too is just the fact that I look at some of the other teams that I have placed higher than a dynasty, and I look at the additions that they had and like what some of their sign-ins unlocked with the pieces that they already have, and I felt like it was more impactful on their end than what it is with the dynasty. But I will say, like, I'm not like over the moon about Bogosian coming in, but like it was an expected move. I don't think this changes where I have them. I do prefer this option over Creative as a primary flex support. And Creative can, learn from someone that's more of a veteran within the scene. And we'll see how they cultivate his talent moving forward. But, we'll have to see if there's any wacky shenanery in regards to substitutions this season, like we do every year with the Dynasty.
Yeah, do you think they're done signing?
Yes.
Okay, because they only have, 9 people on the roster right now.
Yeah, I feel like they blew a lot of their budget with the Spitfire moves. Because those are two big names.
True. I mean, true. But I feel they could get some budget players because they're in
London took them all.
But no, like budget, like, look at Bumper. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Bumper will sign with him, but like some Korean players would sign for less to go play back in Korea to kind of fill out a roster.
My only problem with that thought process is we haven't seen it actually put into practice yet when we thought we would. So it's kind of hard to see whether or not that bargaining chip is as substantial as we would have initially guessed it would be for them. So who knows?
I actually think they could probably use to sign another DPS. I think one more DPS would do good for them, just to have that added depth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they had gone after like Flower, but Flower picked playing time with Runaway over being on the bench for the Seoul Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, we do need to get into our main discussion, because I already know we're going to be 2 hours plus. So, okay, we're focusing on tonight, the Atlantic and North. We went over the South this past week. We gave our thoughts. We overviewed, the changes to the team, and we also gave our projections of where they were going to place within their division. And, we'll go over, like, our overall rankings later down the road. Once we have all that aggregated at that point. So the teams that we're going to be talking tonight are Boston Uprising, London Spitfire, New York Excelsior, Paris Eternal, and the Toronto Defiant. So let's start with Boston, Ed. Well, and then we'll go into London, because those are the two teams that you and I are both like, well, neither team is probably going to be that great, but we're going to have a Lord Vader on them anyway. So,
yeah.
It's like...
They're both bottom 5 for us. Let's get that out of the way.
This is true. They are both in that bottom 5 block. Okay, so first off, and I already know where you have Boston placed compared to London. Like, there's going to be 5 and 4 in this division for both of us. So we have the Boston Uprising, who have released a multitude of players over the offseason. Blase was sent over to the Outlaws. They released Stellar, Persia, RCK, Alamon, Aimgod went to the Justice, and Kelix is now with the Defiant. So they kept 3 pieces of this roster. You have Color Hex at DPS, and then they kept both main tanks of Fusions and Axiom. Now, who did they pick up? They got Jerry from Meta Athena. You got Munchkin, formerly from the Seoul Dynasty, and Brussin from Angry Titans, with the ultimate wildcard and one of the better supports out of Contenders Korea of Myunmon from O2 Blast, which they kind of just snaked by just like, here's an offer, and then they just accepted it right away. So I still don't understand how that happens, because he deserves to be on a better team, but congrats, you're the best player on your team, for what it's worth, on that regard. But potential trade bait for them to get like 3 subpar players, I guess. That's something. Okay, so I'll be honest. I do have the Uprising as the 20th team. I know you have London as the 20th team, which is why we have our Lord bet on these 2 teams and who is
Also,
going to
you
fare
have.
better.
I would like to correct you. You have London being the 3rd best team in this division.
Oh, I do. That's right, because I'm not a fan of Toronto.
Paris. You have Paris as the 3rd worst team.
This is true. And I have my reservations about that team for various reasons, which I'll get into. So Boston, this is a weird team. You know, Boston is kind of continuing the tradition of, okay, we're going to try to get lesser known talent. We'll see how they do. And I'm confused. They go out, they get Mineral for the head coach. Formerly Florida Mayhem. Probably not the team that I would poach from in that regard. A lot of internal issues on that team, creative decisions. Obviously, like, that team's gotten blown up quite a bit over these past few seasons, but, you know, Uprising have always kind of been this team who have just based their success off of how good their coaching staff is. When they had Krusty, they had a perfect stage. When they didn't have Krusty, they've been pretty bad. So I don't have a ton of faith in Mineral, and because of that, I don't have a ton of faith in the Uprising. Now, what I will say is, like, Myunbun, awesome sign-in. Should not have gone to this team, but, you know, pat yourself on the back for actually signing him. That was an actual good move, and they could make quite a bit of money off of him as a player. But, you know, Boston still has, like, that diamond in the rough strat going for them. Like, Jerry, complete unknown from Meta Athena on a DPS line. You have Munchkin, who didn't see, like, a ton of playtime. Like, he was kind of like playing Zarya when the meta was 3-3, but we haven't really seen him outside of that. And when we did go to a DPS meta, Dynasty were never playing him over Fleta, and in most cases, like, they were still playing Fitz over Munchkin. So Munchkin's just kind of like another one who's just like, well, we don't really know what to expect from him. So you're putting a lot of pressure on Color Hex to be the carry of this team. Now, I will say, like, the main tank situation on this team, I'm still not thrilled about. You know, when Fusions entered the league, he definitely brought a lot of excitement to the Uprising. He was very aggressive, and I would say, like, after the first 4 to 6 weeks, you saw the diminishing returns of Fusions. More people saw how he was playing, more people got the tape on him, they got the read on him, and he just hasn't quite had the same effectiveness that we have seen, and it's been more evident with him than it has been most other tanks in the league, in my opinion. So I'm really not feeling the tank line at this point. So, you know, some of the players that they cut, like, were just kind of like RCK didn't really strike me as, like, a standout player on this team. Neither did Alamon. You know, Aim God and Kelix, in their own regards, were fine. I don't know if any of them were, like, exceptional players, but, like, they were kind of, like, causing, like, some internal issues with this team. Now, is that going to completely dissipate going into this new season? Potentially. But I look at the way that this team runs at the academy level, and then I look at how they do things on the main roster, and they try to incorporate selling off talent in both regards, but it's been far more effective on one side of the coin than the other, and it's hard to put all of my faith in Color Hex and Myunbun, knowing that you have, like, 2 notable players, and then a lot of, like, wild cards or players that I would perceive to be as either average or below average at key positions. So there's a lot of unknown.
So here's the thing. I have learned with Boston that we just need to trust their scouting department. because that is something they have actually done amazingly well, is getting these players that they scout that other people truly aren't scouting or aren't scouting hard enough and signing them. Like let's go through some of these people, like Neko, Striker, Gamsu, Note, Kelix, Ingod, Blase, Stellar was pretty good. Mistakes, Kalios, I'm not going to say a vest.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you already, Ed. More than half of them aren't starting.
But the thing is they were pretty good. Well, actually, no. Neko is starting.
Neko is in contenders.
Oh yeah, he's in contenders.
Kalios is in contenders.
Gamsu's starting. Note starting.
Well, Gamsu's been their best player across the board, I would say.
Yeah, Note, Kelix is starting. Ingod starting. Nobody knows if Blase is starting. Because who knows what's going on down there with the DPS issue.
Well, I mean, yeah, they have basically the same person in hydration, so who knows?
Yeah. So, but they're really good at finding these characters. Now, they may not be the starting caliber on all these teams, but they have always been the team that were just like, they're in 10th place. All right. They got some good players. They trade them away. They sign new ones. They trade them away. Like, this is a team where it's probably got the most influx of new players and getting rid of players out of anyone in the league. Besides maybe the Spitfire, who have basically got rid of everyone this year.
Yeah, but with that too, that also kind of has its ill effects where how much time do you actually give these players versus how quickly can a team that is constantly in a state of flux be able to synergize with one another, knowing that very few spots on this team will be solidified year to year and kept on the roster.
Yeah. There's
because it constantly feels like, honestly, like for me, it feels like Boston every year is just resetting. And you have to basically start from the ground up. And it just feels like it's... Mm-hmm. I feel like they're always bringing in more people than they are keeping them in the system and trying to cultivate that talent outside of, like, that first season.
Now, and I do not disagree with you. But I will never put them on the bottom because of their scouting department. Like, because of all these diamonds in the roughs that they do find. And they find players to fit the meta, and if the meta changes, they find new players.
But you also haven't been able to escape the bottom half of the league.
That's fine. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying they're not the worst team in the league.
All right, so let's do projections. Like, I know you have them 4th for the division. I do have them 5th based on our rankings. But, like, what do you think record-wise we're looking at for Boston Uprising this season?
Oh, God. How many matches do they play again?
It's 28 throughout the entirety of the season. I'm going to pull up the stand-ins from last season, too, so we can kind of do a plus-minus. So Boston were 8-20, which was last season 19th in the Overwatch League with a -37 map differential.
I could see them coming in around that, maybe a bit higher. Maybe sneaking out 10. Like going 10-18. I could see them doing that. But like the thing is I have them... Now, I don't have them in last place in the division. Like, let's be clear. This is the worst division out there. And I think everyone kind of agrees with it from the host stint.
You have like one great team, and then a lot of teams that are
like, I'm the only one so far. Actually, no, I'm the only one who has more than one team from this division in the top 10. Everyone else has one top 10 team, and then the rest of the teams are in 11 through 20. This is not a good division. So, like, I don't have the Uprising in dead last place. I have them in 18th place.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's not like I have them skyrocketing. I don't have them being so much better than the Spitfire. I have them being 18th instead of 20th. So 8 and 20, 10 and 18, somewhere in that range is where I expect them to be.
Yeah, I have them projected at like 7 or 8 wins. I think it'll be about the same. And you know, for me, it was more a combination of, you know, I look at some of the other teams that were in that bottom echelon of the league this past season, and I thought the other teams had bigger sign-ins, more additions that I have more faith in, because they did come from more storied systems in, you know, contenders, be it in mostly Korea in most situations on this case. But this division as a whole is kind of all over the place. But anyways, let's talk about London. This is the other part of our Lord bets. And this London, to me, I'll be honest, is a gamble. This is a wild card team. You know, you look at what they gave up. They gave up a lot of pieces. You got Prophet, Gesture.
They gave up everything.
And Badosian. Basically everyone but Krillin at this point.
And nobody... Sure.
So Goner, Prophet, Gesture, Nuss, Guard, Birdrain, Fury, and Badosian. They kept Krillin. And then they've added a lot of people, a lot of unknowns to many. You got 2 pieces from Fusion Uni. You got Fuse and Bernard. You got J-Mac, who was a main tank for LGE Hua. Hylie, who was on the Dynasty at Flex Support. You got Sanguinar from one of the Gen G sister teams. You got Glister, DPS from Gen G. Shui from Runaway. Babel from BM Hawk. Jihoon from Bubble Burster Gaming. Clayson from Griffin. And Aldo from another Gen G sister team. And that's quite a bit of names that you're just like, who? And I know you're definitely in that camp, as are a lot of people. But like this is an interesting team when it comes to intermixing like Chinese contenders and Korean contenders. Like I will say, like J-Mac has been pretty good at the China level, but like we haven't necessarily seen the best results from him in, say, like the Gauntlet, for example. But the 2 biggest gets for them were definitely Bernard from Fusion University and Glister from Gen G. You know, Glister is going to be the carry on this team. And I am still baffled at the fact that the Dynasty let that piece go. Because I was fully expecting that to be a promotion or a call-up in that regard. And, you know, like, London, I think one of their biggest things this season is going to be reconnecting with their fan base. I'm a little worried about, like, how their ticket sales are going to be in this regard, because you have really no one from this past season's roster, so, like, I don't know how that's going to impact them at that level. But it was pretty evident that the old guard for the Spitfire wasn't cutting it anymore. That wasn't a championship caliber team. And they went out and, you know, they got some notable names in regards to their coach and staff. They got Pavane from New York Excelsior. They signed Twinkle from O2 Blast, which has been, you know, one of the more Cinderella teams out of Contenders Korea that have been, you know, maybe not quite at the Runaway or the Element Mystic level, but that has been a team that has had pretty consistent results in the, like, 3rd, 4th place position, which is more that could be said about, like, some of the other coaching additions in recent years out of Contenders Korea, like, say, like, the Meta Athena core that we had seen this past season. Now, this is a team that, because it's unknown talent, it's a lot of like weighing in what the potential for this team is. And, Bernard, I've always been impressed with. Like, Fusion Uni had always been a solid team. And, at the Korean level, Bernard was pretty consistent too. And, Glister is probably going to be the piece that's going to, like, hold everything together. Because Glister coming into this, at least at the DPS level, was highly touted. He has done fairly well on Gen.G. Gen.G's always just kind of been this team who has had a pretty deep roster, but I don't really know too much about their sister teams, and that's like the one piece of this equation that scares me. So when I look at, the Spitfire, this is either a team that are going to get carried off the back of Glister, which in the new crop of talent, when I look at the rookie class, at least at the DPS level, I have a lot of faith in him to be able to do this compared to some of the other names that we are seeing. I don't think it's going to be a situation of Decay where Decay comes in with all of this hype and then just underperforms on a very solid team. And now you have Glister, who is on probably a below average team, but I think levels up this team as a whole with his addition on this team. But this is a boom or bust team. Like, I don't want to understate that. This is a team that is more than likely going to be bottom 5. You're either going to be like a 20th or a 19th ranked team, or, maybe you can be 14th or 15th at the high end. But, like, when it comes to teams that I'm, like, really intrigued by, Spitfire are near the top of it. Because, like, I don't know a lot about some of these players, but I'm a huge fan of Glister, and I'm going to have blind faith that my boy is going to pull through and win the Lord bet, so you get to get this face as your Twitch emote.
Now, all right, so I will say this is one of the most intriguing teams. I will agree with you on that. And Bernard, I love Bernard as much as you. We have been big Fusion Uni. I refuse to call them T1 at this point. Big Fusion Uni fans for a while. So that's amazing to actually see him up there. And Glister is going to be really good. But the rest of the team is just like, oh, what? Like, Krillin is a seasoned veteran in Overwatch compared to a lot of this team. And nobody knew who the hell he was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, also, let us, and this was the big reason I made the Lord bet and why I have London in last place. Is they do travel the most out of anyone in the Overwatch League.
That's true.
And I think that might affect them a little. Like, they have 2 homestands throughout the whole year. And the rest of the time, they're either traveling to Asia or to North America. Really. So, yeah, that's going to screw with them a little. So that is my feeling on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the travel aspect of this is going to really screw with the team. But yeah, I mean, this is it is impossible to predict this team because we know so little about the depth of Korean talent that you could get a Korean team like this put together and be a top 10 team and nobody freaking knows it. I mean, let's be real. New York Excelsior inaugural season, everyone's like, who the hell are these people? And all of a sudden, they're dominant.
A lot of that too, Ed, was just the fact that Luxury Watch Blue at the time just kind of like stepped away for a while and weren't really competing. So then they just kind of resurfaced.
Jonak was picked up off the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, the Korean Overwatch scene is insane. And we just don't know it as deep as we might know a lot of the NA or EU talent over here. So we may be underestimating them, but I don't think we are. So I'm going with them as the 20th place team. And hopefully you see this bright, smiling face as Totem's emote.
So projections. Okay, so looking at this past season, we had the Spitfire, who were not a championship caliber team, finishing in 7th place at 16-12. I can't see your webcam frame completely, so I don't know how many fingers you were holding up.
6.
6.
I'm holding up 6.
So you're saying 6-22.
Yep.
Which would mirror what the Florida Mayhem did this past season.
Yep. The London Mayhem. That actually sounds better.
I have them at let's see, 9-19, which would put them at last season's Outlaws. I don't know if that's a compliment or
like we both have the let's be don't get us wrong.
Right.
Both of these teams are gonna suck. It's just a matter of which one sucks slightly more.
So, rather than talking about teams that we don't have a lot of faith in, let's talk about the one bright spot in this division that is potentially a championship team. Now, whether or not they can actually do that has still yet to be proven, but if last season taught us anything, it's that they can, in fact, win sometimes, on occasion, in the playoffs, that being the New York Excelsior.
60% of the time, they win every time.
So, for the most part, some interesting additions to this team, which we'll get into, but they released Meko, who is now on the Outlaws. You have Flower, who is now with Runaway over in Contenders Korea, and they also released Pine. Now, they kept Mono, Libero, Nene, Sebiobi, Jonek, and Animo. So the pieces that they added were Hotba, formerly the Guangzhou Charge. They promoted Bianca from Excel to Academy. They signed Mondu from O2 Blast. And they also put the Kebab in Huoryu's loan status at the Contenders level, who was on loan from Fusion Uni to Meta Athena. So here you have a team who finished 3rd in 2019. And there'd always been this conversation this past season of the big three. You had basically New York, who was a clear-cut 3rd in this case, and then you had the Shock and the Titans. And, after a while, it kind of just got to the point where, the Titans and the Shock were just dominating so much that everyone is just like, it's just the big two at this point. And, New York kind of became this, I don't want to say an afterthought, but they weren't in the big picture for a lot of people. Now, this is a team who in the past have really excelled at playing defensively. And, they kind of turned to, Huoryu to bolster this DPS line. And, I'm kind of conflicted. I have enjoyed watching Huoryu since he first entered the scene, when he was 15. But it's hard to imagine a situation where there wasn't something happening behind the scenes, whether it was behavioral issues or something like that, that caused the teams that he was on to just be like, you know what? Go be someone else's problem, where he wasn't getting a starting position. Because he was on loan for a very extensive amount of time by Fusion University. And sure, there was a lot of talent on that team at the time. But, it's hard to argue that Huoryu couldn't have had the starting spot if he had chosen to have that. But, could this be a red flag for New York at this point? It's definitely a possibility. But, you also have additions like Hotba, who, yes, he's entering a new environment, but he's a better supporting staff than he has ever had before in the Overwatch League. And this is someone who, despite our initial concerns with the introduction of Rollock, actually hasn't seen a step down in play overall, which has been great for him. But filling the shoes of Meko is a pretty decently sized task at this point, because this team has always been fairly consistent on the front line. And a lot of that just stemmed from the, how well, Mono would kind of, handle the pressure. But it did kind of feel like a long time. Like, it would just boil down to how well Mono could fare with the amount of resources kind of pumped into him at this point. But, you know, I think Bianca is a welcome addition to this team. I thought in the Gauntlet, his Sigma looked exceptional. Will he start over Hotba? I'm not quite sure. But a lot of that kind of just boils down to the fact that even on XL2, Bianca was kind of split in time with Buds at that off tank position. So I don't know. But that being said, like when I look at this team, I still think we need to look at it as the big three. Now this is a team that was 22-6 this past season. You know, one less win than the Shock. And I don't know if they'd be able to match that, but this is a team that definitely has the capabilities of putting up 20+ wins.
Yes.
I feel like they'll fall a little bit under. I think this season they'll be at 21 wins, so they'd be 21-7, but I am expecting another top 3 finish for this team at the end of the season, with potentially... Maybe they'll be able to usurp the Titans if everything falls into place. But, like, for me, I want to see what the DPS rotation is going to be. Because we're kind of getting to this point now where, you know, you're looking at SBB, and yes, he's been kind of like the in-game leader for this team. But if Who Are You works out, like, I could see a possibility of SBB kind of being the fourth wheel at this point on that DPS rotation.
Yeah, it's definitely they are flush with DPS, which is always a good thing. We counted SBB out a little bit last year, but then he was the driving force for the team for the second half of the season. So who knows? I mean, you have Libero, who's going to be the starter, I think, and then you have to kind of just be like, all right, who's starting with Libero? You also have to decide who's going to start as your flex tank. Because not only do you have Hotba and Bianca, you also have, I'm not ruling out Nene as a flex tank as well, because that is what Nene came up as a flex tank, not as, well, no, he came up as a DPS, but he played a lot of flex tank in contenders. So who knows what we got there. I think the only 3 lockdown spots are Mono, Jonak, and Animo. And everything else, I think, is kind of like a coin flip at this point, but a coin flip of awesome players. Like, I don't think they get any weaker at any position, no matter who they have starting. There's 30, 40 different lineups that they could go with, and all are just as strong as the next. The hard part is going to be like what one is stronger. I'm with you. I think that New York is probably a 20+ win team, especially in the division they're in. They're gonna mop up. So I'm gonna go with, they went 22-6 last year. I think they're gonna do 22-6 this year. Like, I have them finishing 4th overall in the league. Okay. I think you have them 2nd, and I think that is a matter of 1 game difference between the two or something like that. So, like, you know, they could go 22, they could go 21, they could go 23. Who knows? It's just, I think this team is pretty sad, and I think Sebeobi probably is going to be the odd man out. I think they're going to go Libero and Nene as DPS personally, with Who Are You as the primary backup, and then Sebeobi as the Taimu of the team. And then I think they're going to go with Bianca instead of Hotba, just for Sigma play. So, but I all of that could be wrong, and they're still just as strong.
Right.
So, New York's going to be real good again. Let's just say that outright.
Absolutely. So that would lead us into the Paris Eternal, who have seen a number of changes as well. So they release Finzi Danye. We have LH Cloudy, who is now on the Gladiators. then they also released Shadowburn. They kept Ben Best, Nico, Soon, Gray, Hip, and Cruz. Now, quite a few pieces introduced. They got Sparkle and XCI from Element Mystic, as well as Hanbin, was their flex tank. They also picked up another main tank in No Smite from the Hanzhou Spark. They also signed a flex tank in Smex from Montreal Rebellion. So, of course, like, going into the offseason, everyone's like, where the hell is Sparkle going to end up? None of us pegged, Paris as said team. A lot of us were feeling like it's got to be one of the Korean teams, right? And like I was assuming it's probably gonna be London, maybe Seoul. Like if they were truly going for that super team. Neither of those happened, and we saw what other pieces both of those teams got. But you have a team who, they have a couple of players that they're waiting on. Now, in one regard, like with Hanbin, very early on, he turns 18. They gotta just wait out the first 2 games of the season, and then it could slot him in. The Smex edition, to me, is still kind of a weird one, because, like, essentially, you could have just had Nico go to the role that he came up on and just play that, but they got Smex anyway, so I'm still not sure how I feel about that, because essentially, I just look at that as someone who's going to play 2 games and then get benched the entirety of the season from that point on. And, No Smite is, another tank option, and this is a team that did split tank time quite a bit at main tank this past season, but he wasn't going to be starting over Gushue, and it's kind of like a coin toss on that regard, too. I don't have a ton of faith in either Ben Best or No Smite on this particular team, but, a lot of this is going to boil down to what the DPS is going to look like. I really feel like Soon and XCI are going to be starting the bulk of the season, and that will be more than half of the season, because Sparkle doesn't turn 18 until, 16 games into the Eternal season, which is a long time, so he's only playing 12 of 28 games.
Yeah, May 31st.
Yeah,
is when he turns 18.
That's a pretty long wait. Now, you look at this team and, there were other main take options that I would have been a lot happier with, that I felt like could have leveled up this team more, none of which happened, and obviously, the bigger names out there that were available were, Bumper, Tizzy, Kaiser, but Kaiser's with O2 Blast, who I'm expecting great things from in contenders this season, but I feel like that would have been the piece that would have leveled up this team a lot more and given me more faith in this team as a whole. The talent is definitely there with the Element Mystic pieces, but it's this weird combination of EU and Korean talent. And, I know they're going to be common in English, because every single support player that they have is French, so, I highly doubt they're going to be common in Korean on that front, but, at least they have 2 at each position, so, they do have multiple options. I just don't know if they're the best option, so it's just, you have one good to great option and one, okay, maybe? But I feel like you're just holding out until Sparkle becomes of age to, reach what your true potential is, and at that point, I still feel like it's going to be an adjustment. They're still going to have growing pains, and halfway into the season, that is not something you want to be seeing from a team. This was a team that, everyone was sounding like, well, they're just all EU, so they must be great at goats. And that did not happen. And then we went into a DPS meta, and, you had a couple of high spots from Soon, a couple of high spots from Danye, but they weren't a lights-out duo. So you're basically banking on the fact that Sparkle, XEI, and Hanbin are going to be the cornerstones of this team to carry you into the future. And, the first season, I don't think it'll be the answer. But I feel like over time, I think going into next season, when they remove more of these EU pieces, which I'm expecting them to do with the coaching staff that they have, This is going to be a team that will be built stronger in the long run, but short term, I'm not expecting too much from them.
Okay, so you actually have them in 17th place?
Yes.
I think that's hella low. Like, I think there's just pure talent on this team that will carry them past 17. I think their support line is pretty good. I like Cruz and Gray as a support line duo, and Hip there, and FD God playing Baptiste. I think that their support line is pretty good. I think soon with Ixie and Nico is good enough. I think Ixie and Soon will hold down the fort. Their main tank is definitely a concern. Definitely a concern. But once they get Hanbin in there, I don't think their flex tank is going to be an issue at all either. So it's like, well, their support's fine. Their DPS is pretty good. And then when Sparkle gets there, it'll be really good. And their tank needs help. Like, I don't think they're bottom 3. I have them actually at 12th over. I can see them doing like 12 and 14 or 12 and 16 type
like
of
your math
season.
doesn't check out there.
Like math. I could see them going like 12 and 16 this year. It's a very interesting team because we have seen mixed teams work in the Overwatch League. So it's like, is this gonna be the San Francisco Shock mixed team gonna work? Or is this going to be the janky-ass Florida Mayhem not going to work?
Or,
type
the Toronto situation. Defiant of the past season being another good example who went 8-20.
Yeah, so, like, we don't know what we're going to get. I'm assuming somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be the third worst team. I don't think this team is worse than the London Spitfire. Like you.
I know. For me, like, I see them as like 9 or 10 wins, in my opinion.
Crazy totem.
We'll see who's right at the end of the season. But even like comparing it to last season, like if they are 9-10 wins, it would still put them bottom 5. At that record, for comparing to last season. Now we do have one other team that we need to talk about before we wrap up, and that is the Toronto Defiant. Who, again, a lot of moving pieces here. They release Aid, Gods, I'm37, Sharik, Yakpun, Neko, and Ivy, who went over to the Fusion. They kept Mangachu, although on a 2-way contract, so probably not going to be seeing a ton of stage time. Roki, also 2-way contract, so he's kind of out of the picture. So really, the only other player that they have is Logix from this past season. So they added a ton of pieces. They added Kariv from the Valiant, Agilities from the Valiant, Beast, aka Beast Halo from Fusion Uni, Surefour from the Gladiators, Kelix from the Uprising, and Nevix from the Shock. So, like, I've already said this. Like, I was disappointed that they released Gods. Like, Gods to me, meme aside, because his social media presence is phenomenal. Like, really up there with, like Stratus, in my opinion. This is a team who they're going towards fan favorites, and I feel like Gods would have, like, fit that niche in regards to, like, the other additions that they have had to this team. So I look at the team and Toronto again, kind of going with that Frankenstein roster approach. Didn't work last season. Again, they went like 8-20. But they basically go out and they cherry pick really popular players from teams. Primarily, Surefour and Agilities being the most prominent, I would say. And this is gonna boil down to, like, how good is Nevix really? Obviously, Choi Hyobin was in a leadoff tank. Nevix couldn't wrestle that starting spot away, and there's a lot of hype behind Nevix being a star caliber player and someone that is able to start on any team in the Overwatch League. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone. But, my concern is with the tank line, but it's more so on Beast Halo, who hasn't really seen a ton of playing time, at least on the big stage. Like, there was a time when he was splitting time on Fusion Uni, with Chainsick. So he's been kind of on and off again quite a bit. And there was one point where we just didn't know where he was for a while. Like, he was, I don't know if it was in development hell, if it was something with contracts. We don't really know what the story of that was. But for a while there, we didn't know where he went. Like, it wasn't like he was on loan or anything like that with who are you in this case. But they don't have backups on this tank line, which to me is definitely a red flag. I wouldn't say that any of their... I don't think Tariq would have been a good option as a backup, because he didn't really stand out that much this past season. I would have loved to see them keep Godso in that regard. But this is a team who... I look at their players, and Surefour is a very popular player. Is he an elite player? Probably not. Will he be able to mold into playing whatever hero that this team is going to want? Yes. But Surefour to me has never been a top 5 player at anything that he has ever played. And is it good enough for the Overwatch League? Probably, but he doesn't have that carry potential that some of these other mainstay DPS players are going to have at this level. And Agilities has had his moments, but he's a very flashy player, and he's always looking for that big play. And in a lot of cases, I feel like in order for him to be a good complementary DPS, he needs to have more reservations in his play to really start to balance things out. And I think once he does that, then his name will be brought up a lot more and hold more weight. But I don't have a ton of faith in these pieces. I'm happy for Cullix to get out of Boston because of Boston's environment. So I'm curious to see how he performs. And Kari was pretty hyped from his Ana play, so we'll have to see how his other components come into play in this team. But this team could just benefit from being in a bad division. I'll be honest. I do think they'll be better than everyone outside of New York in this division. But they're also not a team that I would peg as a play-in team. But this is a team that's probably going to be bottom 5, maybe bottom 7 for the majority of the season. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sold on this team. I have never been, and I mean, I think you can attest to this, I've never been a big Karif fan. I think he was very much overrated. I do not like the support lineup for this team. I don't like the Karib-Calyx combo because I think Karib only got a fan base following because he would hit a lot of awesome sleep darts. And I don't think he was that complete of a healer. Calyx is, ample main support, but I think overall, I think the support line for Toronto is below average. Their tank line is below average, I think, with Beast Halo and Nevix. I'm not falling for the Nevix hype. And Beast Halo is probably an average tank. Surefour and Agilities and Logics, I think that's probably an above average DPS lineup. It's just this lineup screams Dallas Fuel 2.0. We're gonna sign fan favorites. We're gonna get the fan base behind us. We're gonna do all that, which from a business side is actually not a horrible decision. Mm-hmm. But can they actually play together and win? And Dallas learned that the hard way. They have a very dedicated fan base, but their team sucks. So, where do where's the line? So, I don't know. I have this team low. I think Spider has them lower than me. I have them as the 17th place team
Okay.
going into this year. I see them winning eight
So
games.
you're thinking they're gonna match what they did last season?
Yeah, I'm thinking 8 games. I'm just not sold on this team.
Yeah, I had them 14th in my rankings, and like I feel like when it comes to the whole main tank discussion, at the end of the day, is we have seen main tanks in the league that have had the perception of being pretty subpar, basically getting leveled up by the components around them. And I do think this team has enough of a veteran composure that will kind of like level out the playing field a bit to bolster up the tank line. Now that being said, like I don't think this team will get above 10 wins this season. I think that's kind of like their ceiling. I do think they will go 10-18, but this is a team that will probably be in that 8 to 11 win range at the end of the season. But if they're able to pick up wins over 3 of the other teams in their division, not so much over New York because I don't see that happening. That could aid them in climbing the ranks a bit more, but I don't think this would be a team that is going to be in the play-in discussion at the end of the season.
No. No.
An above-average team for their division, as we have them pegged at, I have them pegged as second, behind New York in this case. I think they would be middle of the pack in your regard, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's see here. Excelsior 1. Eternal 2. Yeah, third. I have them third. But like 3 of my bottom 4 teams are from this division.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went Defiant, Uprising, Valiant, Spitfire.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like I would say like because of how we look at these teams, like I'm probably the least invested in this division. And that's because it's primarily more so the fact that there's a clear-cut great team in here. And then a lot of teams that we just do not have super high expectations for. But that being said, this division does have more of a restructured feel to it. So that will primarily be like the big storyline for this division moving forward. Whether or not these fan favorites or completely blowed up the entirety of your roster, per se, like the Spitfire, are going to pay off in the short term. But we'll have to see how they do. Now, with that being said, like, we have covered all of the Atlantic. So we'll be starting with the Pacific this next week. And of course, we'll be talking about the new event, which is going to be dropping. And we'll talk about the cosmetics and all of that stuff. But with that being said, guys, we are going to close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, again, as always, the best thing to do is to head over to iTunes, leave and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there is anything in particular you would like us to incorporate and add to the show. We are always looking for ways to improve in the grand scheme of things. Now, if you would like to find additional Overwatch content, we do have a podcast directory which focuses on all aspects of the game, the competitive scene, and things like that. So Sunday nights, we do the weekly recall, which has a listing of all the prior week's podcast episodes across the scene. And you can find out more info on our Twitter, which is at OW Recall. Now, we do have additional ways to support us. So we do have, we do stream on Twitch, 3 nights a week minimum. So, Twitch Prime subs greatly appreciated. That doesn't cost you anything if you have Amazon Prime. Otherwise, if you subscribe, it is $4.99. And if you're like, you know what, maybe that's a little bit too much for me, we do have cheaper options. So you could head over to our Patreon page. There we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So if you want to support us through there, that is at patreon.com/OWL Network. And should you pledge $5 or more, you can get a weekly shout out from us on all of our shows. So you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons in Blazing Bob, Brendan, JZ, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow. So thank you again, everyone, for all of your continued support. And last but not least, we also have a game night coming up here fairly soon. This will be on Saturday, January 25th. So we'll be hanging out in Discord. Join us. We'll be streaming. We're probably going to start at 7 p.m. Pacific time because that's been our normal time. But if you see us hanging out in the lobby ahead of that, we'll probably be running like quick play or something like that. So feel free to hop on whenever, and we hope to see you guys out there. But it is important that you are in our Discord for that, as we will have the lobbies set up so you guys can communicate with your teams whenever we do drafts and all of that good stuff. So hope you can make it out there. Come shoot Ed and I in the face, all that good stuff, and it'll be a good time. And then maybe you two can get peeved by Spider's Mayplay or something. But with that being said, Ed, of course, we do have a number of different ways how, everyone can get a hold of us. So please let them know how they can do that.
All right. So you could reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at @hndoverwatch. You can go to our website, and that's at www.owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube, where we post everything, and that's youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Come join us on our Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. And then, like Totem said, we do stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We're our Twitch affiliate, so come help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly, so Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. And then Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have OWL by the Numbers, our fantasy Overwatch League podcast. Make sure to listen to the newest episode, as we have Soldrick, the creator of HighNoon.gg, and then we have Foul of Foul Play next week to talk about the platforms and all that stuff. So
that would be fantasyowl.com.
Fantasy OWL. Shush! We've been talking for like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's been a long show.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule, so be sure to follow us to be notified when we go live. And as Totem had said, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So come over there. Tiers starting at just $1 a piece. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. And Totem, where can they find you?
You can find me over on Twitter at TotemlyDrunkCTR, and I'm on Twitch usually Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. To be honest, I don't know if I'm going to stream after this. This has been a long show, and I don't want to lose my voice by streaming for like another 2 hours. But anyways, typically Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at twitch.tv/TonallyDrunk. So with that being said, guys, I do want to thank you again for joining us tonight on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 193. Man, we are getting up there. We are inching closer to 200.
We'll have to come up with something for episode 200.
Yeah, we'll figure something out in that regard, because it will be happening, when the Overwatch League is actually on. But we hope to see you guys back on Monday at this point for our next episode of Overwatch League Network, when we'll cover or start to cover the top 10 teams, going from teams that we have ranked 10th through 6th. So you guys take care and have a good night.
Peace out, y'all.